All right, let's talk about it. Healing. Everybody loves to say they're on a journey. Like healing is just some cute little stroll through a meadow with soft music playing in the background. Well, spoiler alert, it's not. Healing is messy. Healing is crying in your car, eating an entire pint of ice cream at 2 a.m., and then convincing yourself that this is self care. Healing is screaming, I'm fine, when you know you're absolutely not fine. Been there? Right. Here's the thing they don't tell you about healing, it's not a straight line. It's not some checklist where you meditate, journal, light a candle, and suddenly, boom, you're healed. No, healing looks like 2 steps forward and 3 steps back and a full on sprint to your therapist's office when your ex texts you, like, hey, just checking in. Sound familiar? Yeah, I thought so. But let me tell you this, healing doesn't have to be perfect to be real. And just because you're struggling doesn't mean you're failing. In fact, the messiness is where the magic happens. It's where you grow. So today we're going to unpack all of that. I've got an incredible therapist with me today because healing isn't one size fits all. And we're going to get into what it takes, what it really takes to embrace the chaos and come out stronger on the other side. Stick with me, because if you ever felt like your healing wasn't possible or just wasn't working, then this conversation is for you. Let's start the show. Monroe Howard is a therapist, licensed master social worker, motivational speaker, and educator, best known for his work as a life coach and advocate for mental health awareness. Inspired by his diagnosis of major depressive disorder, he is driven to destigmatize mental health and promote the upliftment of the Black LGBTQIA plus community. He continues this effort as a therapist in private practice in Maryland and Virginia, and as a part time adjunct professor at Montgomery College. Monroe holds a Bachelor of Science degree from California State University, Sacramento, and a dual master's in social work and public administration from New York University. Go Violets. He is the host of The Naked Experience. No, get your mind out of the gutter. The host of The Naked Experience, a Facebook and YouTube series that celebrates marginalized individuals and the communities they represent. So please join me in welcoming Monroe Howard to the show.
So, Carmen and Chuka, so this is going to be very indicative of our personal friendship because he's like, look, the naked experience. I do want to just make a quick, it's the naked truth experience.
That
But there can't
maybe
be
it was a Freudian slip, a
Thank you for
parapraxis, one might say.
Oh, I was backstage like, oh, here we go. It's going to be fun. Hey, Carmen, how are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm really happy to be here with you.
Well, thank you for joining the show. We're going to jump right in with just the basics because people say healing isn't linear, which sounds nice and all, but it's really kind of a way of being less real because you really want to say, hey, life's going to slap you around a little bit. So, from your perspective, what does that phrase mean? Healing isn't linear.
Well, I think the first thing that we have to recognize is that most of us, I'll say most of us, including myself, really like a certain predictability and certainty in what we're doing in life. And so, when you approach your healing journey, your healing process, I know a lot of people say, okay, so tell me what to do. I'll do this. And then this means this. And then this means this, because we are looking for that kind of prescribed journey. And if I get here, then I should be getting here, should be getting here. And with that also comes this timeline, right? We are preoccupied with timelines and we want to know when we're going to start and when we're going to be done. Because I got other things going on and I need to move beyond this, right? So
Too
when we
busy.
say, right. So when we say healing isn't linear, it really is this kind of free flowing yet structured model. When you are working with someone like myself or another clinician, a healing professional, or you're in some type of therapeutic modality or healing community, there is structure, but you have to give way for how you as an individual are going to respond. And I emphasize the you because healing is a very individualized journey. So your timeline, my timeline, your responses, my responses may look different. And when we're talking about it not being linear, it means that we should expect and also, and this might be hard for a lot of people, embrace the setbacks, right? Because it tells us some things in terms of we are going somewhere. And when we sometimes maybe take a couple of steps back, it allows us to reevaluate, reimagine, and also re-engage with the healing process. So can't expect it to just go from point A to point Z, right? With no stops or no hurdles in between. That's just not what the healing process looks like.
Well, you mentioned embracing the setbacks, and I say at the end of every show and all of my talks, um, let disruption be the catalyst for your liberation. And another word for disruption is setback, is all of the things happening in your day. And I am the type of person who just this morning was like, I have a short amount of time to get to the coffee shop downstairs, grab a latte, and get back upstairs for my meeting. And I get there, and this line is not moving. And I am panicking in my head because I have all these things to do. And I stop to remind myself, like in the moment, okay, this is working for you. Let disruption be the catalyst for your, like, what could this be doing or whatever. And it so happens that the meeting when I got back upstairs was canceled. And I didn't know because they didn't know something had happened. But I was like, oh, okay. So then I stressed out for nothing. But how do you deal with setbacks in your everyday life?
Let me tell you, sometimes better than others. If we keeping it real, right?
Right.
Um, it depends on how many setbacks, how far back is it going, right? I mean, I think as humans, we're going to have these normalized responses, and especially because when we are putting in effort, right, you want to experience progress. Again, not how life is set up. When you are really making an effort to go forward, and again, that's why I say embrace the setback. And I think you alluded to it. What is this trying to show me? What might this
Mm.
be illuminating? What might this be unearthing? What might this be allowing me to put into practice? Right. So when we talk about a setback in your example, right, if I am someone who really struggles with patience, if I am someone who is really anxious all the time about, maintaining this status quo or it has to happen now, is a setback allowing me to engage that part of myself that embraces a slower pace, right? That in some instances may have to do away with this arbitrary timeline because maybe I have to evaluate, well, who imposed this? Where did this come from? Who told me it has to be done this way? And so I think setbacks have an opportunity, right? Not just to aggravate us, annoy us, frustrate us, but actually show us some things, teach us some things, and really illuminate strengths. And I always say that too. It can really illuminate some strengths that we may or may not have known that we embody.
Well, you mentioned who told us this. And so that's another part that I really want to lean in on, and that is identity. Like healing isn't just about what you do, it's also about where you come from, right? Especially when you're balancing all these cultural expectations. Like, how do you navigate healing in a culture where it's saying to you, what feelings? I don't care about your effing feelings. Just eat something and go to work. Or can you talk about something or some of the unique challenges? Yeah, the unique challenges that people face in healing when it comes to their identity, because it's so based in where we're from as well.
Yeah, I think what it does is one of the main ways or roles that culture plays in terms of healing and the healing process is who gets access to it, right?
Mm,
Who
yeah.
gets access to healing, who gets access to self-care, because for many of us, right, in marginalized populations or communities, healing has been looked at as a luxury. Self-care has been looked at as a luxury. And in this life of survival and struggle and hustle and grind, we don't have time for the feelings, as you mentioned. We don't have the resources to allocate towards our self care or our healing. So it often can be characterized as an afterthought or deprioritized, right? And
Yeah.
so thinking about that in terms of what identities you may embody, what intersections of those identities, right? Some of the things we have to overcome is giving ourselves permission. giving ourselves access to actually feel, to be fully human, to engage our emotions, to make sense of our emotions, and to actually see them as a strength, as a superpower. So many times culturally, right? And if you think about being a Black man, you were told that your feelings made you weak, right? You
Yeah.
were those were associated with things that were going to be harmful or to expose you, and therefore you needed to reject them at all costs. When in fact, being aware, embracing, being able to name our emotions actually gives us the strength to be able to respond in healthier ways to the inevitable situations of life. But if we've only been accustomed to, right, or socialized to believe that we can only be mad, angry, or we can be happy or elated, right, then we miss out on the fullness and the richness of living a life
Mm.
that really is going to engage or is going to be the catalyst for a myriad of emotions that we get to express, which also helps us show up in this world in a more authentic way, which then can lead to healthier engagements and interactions with others.
I'm glad that you talked about the showing up and the way that we feel, like who gets access, because I use the India Ari quote often that truth isn't just about what you say, it's how you show up. And a lot of us don't show up in our truth because we've been taught in families, what goes on in this house stays in this house, or don't let them see you sweat, never let them see you cry, kind of thing. And I think that it's done a disservice in the way in which I'll use myself is that growing up, I was a sensitive kid, youngest of five, but the derogatory term, and anytime I was crying, and I've seen this in families with like the young males, it's like there's always a crybaby. And what I've tried to explain to people is like not to ostracize them for crying or being sensitive, but if you're all in a house, and let's say that these four walls never open, energy doesn't die. Someone is absorbing if no one else is feeling. Someone else is absorbing this energy. It doesn't just get pushed down. And so, can you talk about the ways in which not feeling or not expressing also affects the healing journey?
Well, absolutely. First of all, I always let people know that your mental health is very much connected to your physical health. And
Mm,
they're very much, it's a bi-directional communication, right? Your physical health, if that's deteriorating in some way, has the ability to impact your mental health, right? And vice versa. So understanding that a lot of times when we are not allowing ourselves to express and or access these very vital emotions that we are built to actually have and to express, regardless of gender,
mhm,
regardless of sexual orientation, right? All of these things, regardless of sex, these things are universal for us, right? It's all about the socialization. So I just want to just make that clear that we as men or as males or as masculine presenting individuals are no less prone or no less able to access these things if we allow ourselves to, if spaces allow us to, right? Make it
yeah.
safe for us to do that. So I'll say you can manifest a lot of, physiological responses when you are not able to actually experience and process these types of emotions. So when people talk about chronic pain, when people talk about tensions, when people talk about
Mm,
not able to sleep, when people are talking about weight gain or weight loss, right? When we are talking about these things, a lot of people may attribute them to other things, but will never, ever, ever make the connection or the link to the suppression of these emotions that they have.
hold on,
Here's
I want to
important.
pause you right there. That's a put it on a t-shirt moment. Um, that is gaining weight, losing weight, not being able to sleep, all of these physical conditions are often attributed to a lot, and we rarely ever think that it has to do with our mental health. I want us
Absolutely.
to really hear that.
Yeah. I mean, understanding that as a being, right? Physical, mental, spiritual, all of that is interconnected. And those things, when we talk about wellness, or when I talk about wellness, I'm looking at it from a holistic perspective. So even when an individual comes in to do an intake and we're talking about some of the things that are going on, if there is a physiological thing that is happening, I'm asking them, hey, have you seen your primary care physician about this? Because there is a dual process that is happening. I want to make sure that you go to your primary care physician to make sure it's not something that is happening physiologically or internally that is triggering this. And you best believe that we are going to explore what might be some of the psychological, effects on the body. But it is important that we understand that all of these things work together and in concert with one another. And if one is out of balance, the other one is sure to also be impacted in some way. So, yes, it's absolutely necessary for folks to make sure that they are including the emotional and the psychological into that wellness category when they're thinking about what's happening in my body.
I love the fact that you use the word wellness because we don't often think about it in the community when we're thinking about mental health. Wellness is something else, but I love the holistic view, and we'll start using that as a part of the language of saying my wellness, because we'll say, like, I'm not well, but that
Yeah,
could have so many different connotations. So thank you for using that word.
yeah.
I want to go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I like to put it under that category because if you start to say my wellness, then there's hopefully more likelihood. And when you make sure that you're including the mental health, that when you go and get your checkup for your physical or your annual physical, you will also consider what am I doing for my mental health? Right? What am I doing for my emotional health? So that's something that we want to normalize that under the umbrella of wellness so that people become accustomed to checking in on those things as well.
Okay, I'm gonna give you a two-part here.
Okay.
We talk about, well, how I see the ancestors. Let's talk about the ancestors.
Okay.
The inheritance of trauma and unresolved pain and narratives and behaviors within family is like inheriting a house with bad plumbing. Like, you just won't be able to get by it without clearing it out, and then the smell will start to come up through the walls, and so it's something that we have to tackle. How practical steps maybe, or how would you suggest that people begin to examine that, the stuff that's already built in, baked into the home that they didn't inherit? And then I wanna sort of give you a caveat and say, in all the ways that after this election season, this past week and a half, if you want to see what our mental state is, I would say go onto TikTok about 7 p.m. in the evening and just scroll through all of the lives. And you're getting to see real people in real time in different stages of what I say is grief and elation. And then we're in denial. And then so I would say that, but how does social media also play a part of something we've inherited as a way of processing or dealing with the bad plumbing of the generational trauma pain?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things when I talk about the generational aspect of it. Is one, we don't have to normalize it. I
Mm,
think that individuals, one of the first steps to actually healing that part is to say that mommy, daddy, parental figure, auntie, uncle, great grandmama, and all of them may have been able to manage life in this way, may have had to engage certain coping mechanisms, whether those would be healthy coping mechanisms, maladaptive, or outdated coping mechanisms. But that does not have to be my journey. That does not have to be my story. And so, one of the things about kind of healing that generational trauma is being able to differentiate yourself or distinguish yourself and take ownership for your own healing journey. Sometimes that is the hardest thing because our healing is often hinged upon someone else in the lineage coming to terms with it. And that
mhm.
is just not always the case, right? So, making that distinction, taking that autonomous step and that agency to say, I would like to experience something different, right? I think is a crucial first step in just that awareness, that you can do that and you don't have to perpetuate these things. The other thing that I will say about it is that when we are talking about generational trauma, one of the things that I do encourage people to not do is to pathologize their ancestors or to pathologize their parents or these figures that may have perpetuated some of the hurt and some of the trauma. Now, when I say pathologize, meaning I'm not saying don't hold people accountable, right?
Mhm.
But what you may have to understand is the context in which they may be operating in. What happens is that sometimes when we start that healing journey, it brings things up, and there's anger, and there's hurt, and there's disappointment, right? Which is rightfully so because things were perpetuated maybe in the household, in the childhood, in the experiences that weren't right, that weren't okay. People need to be held accountable, but then we also have to understand, where did this behavior, right?
Mm.
Where did it come from, right? So at times, understanding, you will find in the lineage that there are patterns of these behaviors. So if I had an emotionally unavailable parent, right, I may want to engage what their childhood looked like, right? What their parents did, what their parents knew how to do.
Yeah, I think it's very important that you note, or that you noted about how much access these people can have to you because we live in a society where every December 31st and January 1st, we're cutting everybody off. We cutting them out, we cutting everybody off. And I don't believe that that's healing if you're just not addressing it, if you're just cutting it off. But I love how you said having access, which means that there is still, in some instances, a level of, I still see you in the community. I still see you at the cookout, but that doesn't mean that you and I have to sit down at this table and break bread and shake hands and laugh like everything's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't have to accept that this is normalized behavior, that this is acceptable. I get to opt out.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, last question,
Mhm.
and I'm going to throw you a curveball here. If healing had a slogan, like something you'd see on a bumper sticker, what would it be? You can keep it real, keep it funny, but what would the tagline for the healing journey be? The healing journey slogan.
So you thought you was just gonna come in and leave? I just, because you know how people used to say, you ain't even, are you gonna take your coat off? You gonna take it? You thought you was just gonna come in and leave? You
Hmm.
thought you wasn't gonna, get comfortable, sit down? That's the healing journey. So if you think it's about to be some drive by, some little wham bam, thank you, ma'am, that ain't it, baby. Buckle up, stay for a while, stay for a while, because there is absolutely benefits to staying for a while.
So, the healing journey, stay for a while.
There we
Thank
go.
you.
See, you can synthesize, everything. The healing journey, stay for a while.
Thank you so much, Monroe Howard. I want to say that it has been an honor having you. You're a friend, but you're also an insightful therapist. And people here at the Heart of the Moment, you can find Monroe Howard on the Naked Truth Experience
Yes.
on Facebook and YouTube. Thanks so much for joining us today. At the heart of the moment, healing isn't just about you. It's about everyone connected to you, your friends, your family, your future, your community. When you choose to heal, you're not just breaking cycles of pain for yourself, you're creating a ripple effect that can change the lives of people around you. But here's what's at stake if we don't take healing seriously: the hurt doesn't go away, it just gets passed down to our kids, to our relationships, to our communities. And I know it's hard. It's very hard. The weight of everything that you've been through, everything we've been through as a people, can feel impossible to carry some days. But I need you to hear this. You are not broken beyond repair. You are not too far gone. You are not alone. Your healing matters. not just for you, but for the world we're trying to build. If you've been fighting to hold it all together, if you've been wondering if it's even worth it, I want to tell you, it is. You're worth it. Your future is worth it. And the beauty of healing is that you don't have to do it alone. So let's commit to do this together. Let's commit to feel the feelings, do the work, and then let's take that healing and build something beautiful for the next generation. Because we deserve that. You deserve that. I'm Carmen Michael Smith, encouraging you to let disruption be the catalyst for your liberation.